The world of Jesus' time, Rome was an occupying power for much of the Mediterranean world, including what used to be a Jewish nation, is now just another province in the Roman Empire. So to live in a province of the Roman Empire is always to be looking over your shoulder at an imperial power. Within Judaism itself, at that time, you also have an incredibly varied number of Jewish groups. All of them are seeking to be good Jews in a time when it was difficult to be a good Jew. How do we live as God's people? And we're occupied by a Roman army when we've been occupied by armies for 500 years, almost nonstop, when we have an awful lot of different opinions between Jews about how to be a good Jew.
According to our law, we cannot condemn people before hearing them and finding out what they have done.
Well, are you also from Galilee? Study the scriptures, and you will learn that no prophet ever comes from Galilee.
At the time of the Gospel of John, there are major divisions within Judaism, debates over how to interpret the significance of Judaism, what the responsibilities are of each individual Jew, what their attitude to Rome should be, and so on. A number of those parties are well known. Pharisees, Sadducees are the two most commonly noted. And it's within that context that early Christianity develops, that Jesus comes on the scene and, in effect, creates a new group, a new interpretive model of how to understand Judaism.
We have found the Messiah.
The messianic expectation, the expectation from the Jewish perspective among Jewish groups that there would be a Messiah who would return and bring God's power to earth. At the time of Jesus actually was a very, very old idea. It's something that probably goes back maybe 500 years in Jewish history, and by the time it begins developing, it's not just one idea but a series of ideas. Increasingly, through the 500 years leading up to the time of Christ, Jewish groups are being occupied by one empire after another. And from the time of the Babylonian exile on, which means from around 600 BCE on, the Jewish people no longer have their own king. So the expectation for a Messiah to return is the expectation that a king will return. In Hebrew, the word Messiah, Messiach, basically means one who is anointed. So the longing for the reinstitution of a Jewish king becomes part, if you will, of the underground of Jewish thought all through this time period.
This is the one I was talking about when I said, he comes after me. But he is greater than I am, because he existed before I was born.
And so the expectation latches on to this coming anointed one, that this one will relieve your suffering. This one will set things to right that have been wrong for many, many, many years.
The interesting thing about the Messianic traditions is that they almost always involved political freedom. So people began to talk about a Messiah. A Messiah was the rightful king. And the rightful king would throw the Romans out of Judea. That was his major role, a political role. And the Romans rightfully were sensitive to people who made claims that they were the rightful king of Judea. They understood that to be a political threat. So it's very likely that Pilate is responding to the perception that Jesus represents a candidate for the independence of Judea. But that's not necessarily what Jesus' followers meant, or what Jesus meant by this identification.
How long are you going to keep us in suspense? Tell us the plain truth. Are you the Messiah?
I have already told you, but you would not believe me. The deeds I do by my Father's authority speak on my behalf.
It appears that Jesus himself was very clear to squash the messianic expectations of a political Messiah.
Anyone who hears the Father and learns from him comes to me. This does not mean that anyone has seen the Father. He who is from God is the only one who has seen the Father. I am telling you the truth. He who believes has eternal life.
The different remembrances of the early church do not remember him fomenting revolution in a political sense. Do not remember him claiming to be king in the sense of overthrowing the Roman emperor. And that comes out in the Gospel of John here when Jesus is in dialogue with Pilate. That is a dialogue about how is it that you're king of the Jews.
My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom belonged to this world, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish authorities. No. My kingdom does not belong here.
Are you a king, then?
You say that I am a king. I was born and came into the world for this one purpose: to speak about the truth.
And that's John's take on how it is that Jesus is fulfilling these messianic expectations. It's not as a political Messiah, although obviously there are political ramifications. Rome gets involved. In fact, Rome kills Jesus. But it's not as a revolutionary in the sense of overthrowing the political Roman Empire.
Where do you come from? Do not speak to me. Remember, I have the authority to set you free, and also to have you crucified.
You have authority over me only because it was given to you by God. So the man who handed me over to you is guilty of a worse sin.
Early Christians would say, in essence, what Jesus did and who Jesus was does, in a universal sense, overthrow all empires, overthrow all political realities, because God is more important than all mundane political realities.